Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about the booming Colorado tiny house movement. If you don't know me, I'm Alexis. I'm the co-founder of Tiny House Expedition. With my life and business partner Christian, who couldn't be here today, we built a tiny home and crisscrossed the United States with it about 4.5 times. And one of our all-time favorite states is Colorado. We've parked there and made it our temporary home many times. And if you're looking for a place to park your tiny home, Colorado has a growing number of incredible options. Like Escalante Village in beautiful Durango, that's in southwestern Colorado. Here in a few months, they're going to be opening their first ever tiny house village. It will feature long-term parking and long-term tiny house rentals, which is unique. Normally you see short-term tiny house rentals, but you actually have an opportunity in this community to rent a tiny house for a year or so. And they have about a handful of models to choose from. Definitely look them up. I'll put a link in the description below. But there's lots of exciting things happening in Colorado right now. It's been a big couple of years for the state as far as advocacy and new events popping up. And on that note, today I would like to invite the co-founder of Einstyne Tiny Homes and the Colorado Tiny House Festival and the newly opened Colorado Tiny House Association, Art, to talk with us today about all the exciting things that are happening. And he's going to be joining us any moment now. But in the meantime, let me share with you one of the most exciting things that's happened in the last year in Colorado, which is in Lyons, Colorado. If you're familiar with Lyons at all, you know it's in Boulder County, which is a highly coveted part of the state. It can be very expensive there, partially because it's in a gorgeous setting with wonderful access to the Rocky Mountains. So Lyons is home to Casa, which is one of the largest tiny house hotels across the country. It's absolutely stunning and a great way to try out tiny living. But as of January 9th, I believe, they approved tiny houses on wheels as ADUs, aka accessory dwelling units or backyard cottages. So you can now legally permit your tiny house on wheels to park in someone's backyard. They only have 9 permits available, so it's not a ton, but it's a huge start. And the surrounding towns, including Boulder itself, are looking at doing something very similar. So you can park in someone else's backyard, and your backyard is the Rocky Mountains. Just a short drive to the Rocky Mountain National Park, and it's on a beautiful river that runs through the town. It's really kind of a heavenly place. We parked there a few years back at Casa when they were first getting started, and they had about 12 houses, I think, at the time, and now they have like 25 plus houses to choose from. So that's one of my favorite things, is to be able to have the best of both worlds, be able to test out a new area before you spend the money and the time to relocate, see if it's going to suit your needs, and then apply for a permit. The last time we were in Colorado was last summer, and we parked temporarily in Boulder in a driveway, and we put up a big sign to let the neighbors know what we were doing, because in Boulder, people, and probably in a lot of towns too, people are a little uneasy about new things coming into their neighborhood, new odd things, like here comes a tiny house on wheels rolling into town. It's kind of strange. But what was nice about putting up that sign is it actually encouraged some of the neighbors to come and say hello, and we started some really nice dialogue. Well, just a few blocks over lives David, who is a college student who's living in a tiny house that he built in a backyard. I'll put a link to his video above and below. He built this incredible house, and he made this wonderful garden, And with the extra vegetables that he grows, he gives them to his nearby neighbors. So his immediate neighbors really loved him there, but it didn't keep a developer, possibly, or someone else from putting in a complaint. And he got an eviction notice. And he's like, just a couple weeks before midterms, he was really stressing out about what to do. But fortunately, because Boulder had already kind of been looking at tiny houses, he was able to make a few good connections at the city and start a dialogue with them about what options are available. A big thing that helped him was that his school, Colorado University, only has housing for freshmen. So everyone else is kind of out of luck. And like 6, 8 people are piling up in little houses to be able to afford rent. And here he created his own solution and is a good neighbor and was getting evicted. It didn't make a lot of sense. Well, so through his talks with the city, he actually got a temporary allowance to stay there, which is amazing and almost unheard of. They said, you can stay here, and they formalized it with paperwork. You can stay here while we work on a long-term zoning change for Boulder. So win-win situation for everyone involved, and he's now been there for almost a year since it happened, maybe about 9 months. And I've heard good things about the progress that's being made there. So hopefully it will be sooner rather than later. What's crazy are zoning changes like this can take as little as 2 months, which all the stars have to be aligned for the 2 months to work, or as long as 3+ years, because it could just go round and round. The bigger the city, the more committees, the more potential opposition, the longer it takes. But even small towns like Ojai, California, for instance, they worked on it for over 3.5 years and it got stalled again and again. So I'm hoping that's not the case for David, but at least he's got this, he's got this temporary allowance so he can keep staying there. So it doesn't look like Art is joined us yet. So I'm just going to share some of the things that we were going to talk about, and hopefully he'll jump in here anytime soon. So as I mentioned, Art is organizing the Colorado Tiny House Festival. It's going to happen in the greater Denver area. And it's June 21st to the 23rd. And Christian and I are so pumped because we are going to be the MCs of the event. So you get to pick our brains while we're on stage. We're going to, in between introducing the speakers, there's this incredible group of speakers from all different backgrounds going to share their knowledge about tiny living. So, of course, we get to introduce them, which is going to be a lot of fun. But in between speakers, you get to pick our brains and ask us all your tiny living and travel questions, your advocacy questions. And if you've been following us, you know we're pretty nerdy about this stuff. So we definitely have a lot to share. And we're just like super fired up. And we're actually like to get a little bit goofy. So I think we're going to all have a really good time over the weekend. And we are going to be talking on Saturday. Our talk is called Life or Lessons Learned from Traveling 54,000 Miles with the Tiny House. So as the name implies, we're going to talk about some travel lessons we've learned, like realities of the road, the mechanics of actually towing a tiny house. But more importantly, we're going to talk about what we've learned about ourselves and what we've learned about the tiny house movement. And I tell you, one of my favorite things about the tiny house movement is that it's so diverse. People from all walks of life, all religions, all political affiliations, ages, socioeconomic backgrounds come to tiny living for different purposes. They typically have something in common, is that they're all seeking a higher quality of life to one degree or another. And that really makes for a lot of instant friendships. And that's actually one of our top favorite thing about any tiny house festival, is it's an opportunity to connect with people who don't think you're nuts and actually, you'll find you're talking to people you would never otherwise talk with, but you're coming together over tiny houses, and you could share tips, you could share struggles, and just have a good time. So I just got a message from Art. It looks like he's going to be joining us here shortly. No problem. So, the fun thing about any kind of live that you do is that what can go wrong will go wrong. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. We're actually working on getting some live broadcasting software in the future to take our live game up a notch. If you watched our live from last week, you saw we were in DC at the Innovative Housing Showcase. Huge advocacy opportunity. And that's something that Art's part of too. He just started the Colorado Tiny House Association. It's not just him, it's industry members and DIYers from across the state who are going to work together to try to use some of the precedent that's happened, like in Lyons, like we talked about, and take it to other cities and other counties. Precedent is one of the most powerful things, because we've learned, especially in the making of our doc, Living Tiny Legally, is that people don't want to be the first one to try something. And also we found is people have the same similar concerns and fears about the unknown. And so anytime you can have an organized group of people show up to meetings and, voice their support or schedule educational presentation, that it makes a huge difference. So if you're interested in tiny house advocacy at all, it's important to know that your municipality doesn't necessarily have tiny houses on the radar. It's not necessarily something they're thinking of. So it's really up to you, constituent, and better yet, constituents. So if you have a local chapter of the American Tiny House Association or a meetup enthusiast group, it's important to gather support and to come to the meetings together. All right, so I'm so excited to welcome Art onto our call. Hey, Art.
How's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm dealing with some technical problems, but otherwise I'm good.
Well, that's tends to be how technology is. What can go wrong in the last minute will.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Well, Art, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the main builder for Einstyne Tiny Homes. I'm the director of the Colorado Tiny House Association, and I'm the organizer of the Colorado Tiny House Festival. And that's it. It's probably, I can't take on anything more than that.
That's a pretty long list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Colorado Tiny House Association is brand new. What was your motivation for getting that started?
So mostly because we just really want to try and help the legalization side of tiny homes in Colorado. Colorado is a big hub for the tiny house movement. There's so many different builders and people living in tiny homes in Colorado, and there's a lot of progressive things happening in Colorado. So we're just really trying to see if we can't leverage all those things combined to see if we can make it a more feasible option. And there's been some good progress in Colorado that I think we can work off of.
Absolutely. I think Colorado's got to be in the top 3 or 4 states nationwide who's got the most going on, most happening with tiny houses, the most legal progress, perhaps the most dwellers. And there's something to be said for like critical mass of people doing something, and it causes, policymakers to take note, because the word gets out, right, through great events like you're doing or through meetup groups. And it really makes a difference. So I'm always like, yes, let's go for legal options, but also, go ahead and pursue your dream of living tiny. That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, we're not looking at just the tiny house side of things. For the association, we're also interested in hitting the ADU ADU aspect. So there are a lot of people who they just want to, the house, the ADU, whether that's for their grandparents or their, aging parents, or for their kids moving out, or I mean, there's so many different situations. And so it doesn't necessarily always apply to tiny homes, but I mean, they're obviously I think the right solution for that.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. We're a huge fan of ADU. It's just so practical, existing land, existing infrastructure. What's some big happenings in Colorado that you can share with us?
So there's a Denver County zoning meeting actually next week where they're looking at some zoning changes for tiny houses, and I think a lot of it is to help mainly with the homeless village that they've been working on, that they just recently moved in Denver. And then there's some other places like Leadville, and I'm trying to think of the county right now where Steamboat Springs is. There are a lot of counties right now looking at some legalization for tiny homes. Now, we recently had what city is it? I want to say right there outside of Boulder, Lyons. I'm sorry. My brain is we're so close to the event that my brain is full of all sorts of other stuff right now. But yeah, Lyons has just legalized 10 tiny homes as ADUs. El Paso County did, I think, maybe a year and a half ago. So, like I said, a lot of counties are looking at this, and we actually had Brighton, where we hold the festival, is looking at the potential of introducing some zoning for tiny homes and ADUs. So there's just a lot going on. It's almost too much to keep track of.
Yeah, sounds like it. Wow, that's so great about Brighton. And I always think that tiny house events and festivals are such a great way for people to come and to learn more. So it's kind of like perfect timing that, well, probably maybe your event got their interest, but then also it's like this nice full circle, and then they can come to the event and learn more, address maybe some questions that they have. So that leads me to the event. So excited that we can finally make it out. Thanks for having us. What can people expect at the Colorado Tiny House Festival?
So this year is basically the same as the first 2 years. It's getting a little bit bigger. We have over 40 tiny homes that are coming in there of all varieties. We've got tents, teepees, container homes, yurts, teardrops. I think we've got a converted semi or horse trailer coming. So it's just a bunch of different stuff. And of course, a lot of professionally built tiny homes on wheels. This year we've got an ADU by Slate Homes coming that's roughly 600 square feet. So nice. And it's top of the line, really, really, really incredible. And then we're focusing a little bit heavier on the recreational aspect this year as well. We've got our camping corner this year, so we're showcasing a lot of overland trailers and teardrops and stuff, and some camper vans that people, and you know all about this. You see a lot of these people who they get their tiny home, the next thing they're doing is either a school bus or a van, so that they can continue to live the way they're living, but they want to hit the road maybe a little bit more or easily. So we're trying to obviously cover all that. We do have music all weekend, great food, and speaking all weekend. You guys are going to be speaking there on Saturday.
Yep.
And so Friday, Saturday, Sundays, we got people speaking and some great workshops and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Oh, this year is your first time doing the Schoolie workshop, right?
Yeah. So we had, actually it's an old customer of ours that I built a shell for. She's organizing our Schoolie Build workshop. And so it's being taught by JT Lane of Road Route Mobile Upfitters and Charles Kern of Chrome Yellow. And so they're going to be basically getting people, this is like a get your hands dirty type of thing. You know what I mean? No PowerPoint. They're going to be grinding rivets and doing all that sorts of stuff. So it's 2.5 days, and it's going to just, I think, answer a lot of the questions that people have when they're doing these things themselves, how to wire a 12-volt system, some stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, hands-on experience is the best way to learn.
Yeah,
you gotta get dirty sometimes to learn. And love the guys who are putting it on. They're definitely experts. And yeah, the Road Roots Mobile Upfitters is kind of a tongue twister.
It is.
But yeah, those are awesome guys. Yeah, so lots of speakers, lots of different tiny dwellings, and fun campers. You know, when I was listening to you talk about that, it made me think about teardrops are kind of what got Christian and I into tiny living in the first place. It started with us researching and talking about building a teardrop. And then I think, you know, everyone enjoys more creature comforts, and, you know, it kind of evolved and changed. But I think you raised a good point, is that everyone's needs are always changing. And also, people get addicted to tiny living. It's like you said, it's like people get a tiny house and they're like, well, my 28-foot tiny house isn't really for a road trip, but maybe I need a van now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny how things like that start. I think, so I personally, I don't live in a tiny house, but I live for part of the year. And so after being in there for a little while, the very first thing I think is, you know, I could totally do this. I could just get rid of all my stuff, and really just all I need is a big bunch of place for my tools.
Heck yeah.
And then I'm all good.
I love
know
that.
what I mean? So I think thanks for people.
Totally. I mean, I love what you said about your tools. It's like, what's the most important thing to you? And then like make your space around that.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that you are showcasing both professionals and DIYers, because it's really nice to see this like beautiful magazine spread ready tiny home, and then to go into someone else's and be like, okay, but where does the laundry hamper go?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really important. You know, I especially for people who are really considering a transition into part-time, it's really important to see what's capable and then see what's real. You know what I mean? And have a conversation with people as far as what's really important to them. You know, one of the things that I learned when I was spending a lot of time in my RV was that there's no place for me to get dressed. You know, it's so cramped in the tiny bathroom, and there's not, obviously privacy is an issue in some cases. So a lot of times when we're building a shelf for a customer, we might have those conversations. You know, we're think about it. You're out of shower, where are you going to get changed, and where are you going to do this and that, and where are you going to do your laundry? So those are really, really important things that people have to explore. And you guys know, sometimes people spend years planning and deciding how they want to do this. And so it's a really great opportunity to see a big variety of things. And even if it's not the festival, I think it's important for people to get inside these things, talk to people who live in them, join a Facebook group, do whatever you got to do. It's important.
Absolutely. And the other important part of it is, you know, if you're just curious about tiny living, then you should come to this event, because you know, you're going to learn something new. You're going to find something interesting. And even if you don't want to live in, you know, 400 square feet or 600 square feet in case of that ADU, you might see some like creative storage idea that you can take back to your larger home. You know, there's lots, you know, that you can take away and apply, even if it's just like little tidbits about being a little bit more intentional in your daily routines. Or but of course, my passion is advocacy. So if someone who doesn't want to live tiny comes and they leave with a positive impression, that is really powerful.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's great. That's a really good point. You know, there's a lot of negative misconceptions with living in tiny homes. And I think that a lot of times that comes from some of the legislative side of things, you know what I mean? And also from people who live in a lot of these communities, where they think that, well, if I have a tiny home community move in, then my property is going to lose its value, or there's going to be the quality of my neighbors deteriorate. And all you have to do is step out into one of these events, and you can realize that's not the case.
Totally.
These people are no different. You know, there's nothing weird going on. It's just a simple life choice where people, in many cases, are either looking for something much more affordable, less of an economic or ecological impact, or they just want to get out more and do more stuff. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I think that it's really a good point, is getting out there and taking a look at what this is all about. Really can change, and it does change a lot of people's minds.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Art. And I saw some of you guys in the comments said that you were going to be there. Super excited. to have you and to meet you in person. And if you want to know more about the festival, there's a link for tickets below. Just so you know, this is our affiliate link. You help us out by using that link. But either way, get a ticket online, save some money. If you're interested in schoolies, highly recommend this workshop. And I'm going to put links to Arts Association and his company, his building company below. You know, we've talked about it. Shells are an amazing way to go if you want hands-on experience but aren't a carpenter. This is that perfect in-between option for you. So looking forward to seeing everyone in Colorado on June 21st to the 23rd. And please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll talk to you later, Art.
Thanks. We'll see you guys in 9-10 days.
Final countdown.
That's right. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.